Every so often, as I am playing through the games in a system's library consecutively, I come across one where the designer was really trying something different. Something that wound up being very forward-looking. And in these cases, even if it doesn't work, you usually get something interesting. Radical Bomber Jirai-Kun is an oddball game that if you try to play it on your own, you're probably not going to have a good time. On the other hand, if you have a bunch of friends, then this can be something special. For some reason, the intro to Jirai-Kun is a comedy routine. It doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the game. It's just a really weird way to start things off. Jirai-Kun is a board game. It's an asymmetrical board game in which 4 players try to stop one other player by minimizing that player's movement options. This type of asymmetrical strategy game wasn't very common in 1988, but there was a direct analog, Scotland Yard. Scotland Yard was a board game created in the early 80s in which a team of investigators attempt to corner another player. In Scotland Yard, the investigators don't actually know where the person they're chasing is, they just get clues based on what that other player did. This isn't the only board game about chasing down and cornering a player, it's just that this is the most likely inspiration for Jirai-Kun. And the key to this kind of game is geometry. The board is a network of nodes, and players have to figure out how to close off escape routes. Or if you're the person being chased, how to prevent those chasers from approaching you. Jirai-Kun has 5 different maps available for you to play on, plus you have the ability to edit any of them that you like. You can completely rebalance the game as you feel appropriate. In the editing mode, you can load up any of the existing maps, choose between 2 different graphics sets, and modify pretty much all of the parameters of the game. For editing the map itself, you press A to drop the selected tile where you're pointing at, and then press the select button to drop down to the menu option, where hitting A and B will rotate through the tile options. You've got a lot of flexibility to modify the game the way you want, but the game won't let you play on an illegal map. As for playing the game, before you start, you're informed of the parameters. How many people will be chasing the runner, how many Jirai-Kun there will be on the map. They're a special computer-controlled character who interferes with everybody. How many turns the runner has to evade the chasers for in order to win. How many bombs the runner gets. How many times the runner can take a double move. And how long before the damage from bombs is undone. Okay, now we're actually at the board. Play starts with the runner, and the runner always gets more options than everyone else. They can move, look at the map, or bomb. Looking at the map just gives you a zoomed out view of the whole area. Useful to know what's going on, but not required. I notice for some weird reason the AI will sometimes pull up the map. I don't know why, it's not like it needs to reference positions. Most of the time you're going to choose to move. If you're on a yellow square, you can move 1 square. If you're on a red square, then you can move to the nearest red square in that direction. Depending on the map layout, this can skip over huge sections of the board. If you're on a W square, when you select move, you'll be offered the option to warp. Maps can have up to 8 squares that are warp points, and they come in pairs. So there will be 2 warp point 1s that link together. There's one other special kind of square that you'll interact with, and you're asked if you want to use it at the start of your turn when you're on one. If you choose to do this, that's your entire turn. The squares that have the P in a circle will pivot if you choose that option, rotating all of their connections 90 degrees clockwise. You'll use this to open up new paths or close them off. Bombs will destroy any single line connection that the runner is standing next to. These connections will be restored after a few turns, but it can buy you time to escape. Then, after the runner has done something, they're given the opportunity to go again. This is one of the few advantages the runner has, but they have a very limited quantity of these double moves, so save them for when they're most effective. After the runner does their move, each of the chasers do their moves, and of course their only options are move or map. You always have to move unless there is absolutely no path for you. And if there is no path for you, then your turn gets skipped, even if you're standing on a P button where you have an action you can take that turn. Once all the players have moved, then it's Jirai-Kun's turn. Jirai means landmine, and these adorable mobile bombs will do a random walk around the board. They don't chase after anyone in particular, but they appear in large enough quantities that you might have no choice but to interact with one. If Jirai-Kun lands on you, then you get blown up and miss your next turn. Sometimes Jirai-Kun will just blow up on its own though. The Jirai-Kun always appear where the runner begins, and the default setting for the maps included with the game let 5 of them loose in the maze at the same time, 1 for every player. So those are the rules to the game. They're easy enough to understand, like the best board game rules, and there's a lot of complexity that arises out of them. So how does the AI handle it? And the answer to that is poorly. While it's easy for a human player to look at the board and how the players are positioned, then formulate an approach, the kind of pathfinding required to play Jirai-Kun is actually a pretty tough computing problem. And while I won't ding Jalico's developers in the mid-80s for not coming up with an algorithm that would completely revolutionize everything in the modern world, the computer opponent in Jirai-Kun can't even put up a decent fight. If you're the runner, the only thing it can do is overwhelm you with sheer numbers. If it's the runner, well then it's trivial to corner it. Some of this can be alleviated with better map design, and you've got the tools to edit it right there. But really, you need to play Jirai-Kun with all human players. As you might expect from a Disk System game at this point, Jirai-Kun sold pretty poorly on release. However, it picked up a bit of a cult following as an interesting board game. And I certainly agree with that. The biggest problem with Jirai-Kun is that the computer opponents are truly bad at it. And that's solved by just getting some opponents. Playing cat and mouse with your friends is a lot more exciting. And I think this is even something that could be easily played on a stream against an audience. There's plenty to like about Jirai-Kun. It's just a bit hard to tell that if you were to only load it up and look at it for a moment.